Welcome to the Socialite series, where we celebrate and promote women who influence the world. We do this each and every week to bring you information, inspiration, and motivation from socialites who have something to say. I'm your host, Monica Karst. Now let's get this party started. Well, hello, buenos dias, everyone, and welcome back to the Socialites with your host, me, Monica Karst. Before I get started today, I want to thank my amazing and awesome producer, Don. He always such excellent care of us on the line. I hope everyone got a chance to see that strawberry moon last night, because it was amazing. And speaking of amazing, today we have a very special, amazing guest host on the show. It's episode number 3, and we are going to be talking about sex with Bez Stone. Woohoo! Bez teaches a new kind of sex that works for women and uses the feminine operating system. Did that get your attention? A new kind of sex for women. Let's find out more. Beautiful Bez, welcome to the Socialite series.
Hey, thank you, Monica. I'm so happy to be here today, and I'm thrilled. This is just my absolute favorite thing to talk about on the planet, so thank you for having a venue that gives the space for women to get to talk about how we can have more fulfillment.
Yes. So tell us, for old Bez, who are you and why are you so amazing?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm Bez Stone. I'm a sex educator, a teacher, and a coach. And really, I like to think of sex and sexuality as, I used to call it the death knell for my normal, respectable life. I tried to have a life previous to my work with sexuality, and sex was just that topic that would never go away from me. From when I was a young child and I told my parents that I wanted 10 husbands, I was 8 years old, and I was like, how could one ever be enough? And they were like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. To, all of these different experiences I've had with sex as an adult, from, going through sort of wild times of sexuality where I did a lot of crazy stuff, but it wasn't particularly fulfilling, to being in a sexless marriage. I've had an affair. Like, it really it wouldn't leave me alone, this topic of sexuality. So about 5 years ago, I decided to surrender to it and go with it and say, okay, great. I want to figure this thing out. I really want to understand why I'm not having the kind of sex that I want to, why I don't even feel like I know what real sex is, the kind that I actually get to let go during, that actually feels good for me, that I'm not relieved when it's over. And so that's what I've been studying and researching, through my own life and also that of the people I work with, is what is this new kind of sex? Why are there all these symptoms out there for women being so unsatisfied and kind of seeing sex as a chore instead of as this gorgeous, connected, enjoyable experience that it really has the potential to be? So that's my mission in the world, is to bring this new kind of sex that I've now learned how to have and teach people how to have. I want to bring it to as many people as I can, because it doesn't just make better sex for women. It also actually brings everyone involved, regardless of gender, much deeper fulfillment than probably what you're experiencing right now.
Well, we're so glad you're here, and you're doing a great job at it. So that's how I met
Thank you.
Is you did a local TED Talk, and tell us about that a little bit on the topic and where people can find.
Yes, great. So my TED Talk was amazing. I like to say it's one of only a handful of times the word clitoris was spoken on the TEDx stage. And that talk was about the difference between masculine and feminine orgasm, which is really at the center of my work. Like you mentioned, Monica, the feminine operating system is the cornerstone, or it's kind of the roadmap that illuminates this new kind of way to relate sexually that brings everyone more fulfillment. That TED Talk was about the most obvious place where the different operating systems are seen is in the way we experience sexual pleasure, including orgasm. So it was great. It was so much fun. I loved giving that talk. You can find it. It's on YouTube if you Google. I mean, the URL is pretty obnoxiously full of
Yeah.
letters that I don't remember.
But
But
yeah, I
if
think
you
you could
Google
just
my
Google the,
name,
yeah,
yeah,
female
and
orgasm.
TED Talk, TEDx, yeah, it'll
It's
come up.
definitely
And
worth
it's
it.
really,
That's a fun one.
it's a fun one. It's 7 minutes, and it gives just a really basic foundation. It's funny. You'll love it, and it really gets to, you get to see visually this experience of sex, and especially trying to reach orgasm that most women or anyone who's ever been with a woman has witnessed, but not had any language to explain. Like we all
And it
know,
makes
we
such
have these sort
sense.
of, yeah, we have these idioms like stereotypes, like women take, longer to warm up, or women are crazy, or, some of them are really offensive even. And they all point to our misunderstanding of how women are designed. And, my biggest motivation for wanting to remedy that misunderstanding is that I just hear so many women thinking that there's something wrong with us, that we think the fact that our body doesn't work or that our sexual pleasure doesn't work the same way a man's does, we think that there's a problem. Like we think that men are the cookie cutter of human and that we're supposed to behave the same way they do. And we just don't. We simply have a completely different system that brings us pleasure.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that brings
Mm-hmm.
us into like, okay, you have said women actually want a lot of sex, but that's
Yes.
not the stereotype. That's not what we typically think. It's like, oh, it's the duty, or we have
Yeah.
to, or it's part of the relationship. It's not what we think of as reality in the past, maybe in the future, or now. So, what do you mean by that when you say that? And if it's true,
Mm-hmm.
then why isn't that the norm?
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful question. So I'm certain that is true, and I'm hoping that through my work and us as a society will get to see that proven within the next 5 to 10 years, because I see it in my personal practice. So I've taught upwards of thousands of women techniques in this new kind of sexuality, couples, men. I've lived in communities where we really were focusing on this new way to not only have sex but also to I don't want to sound too Santa Cruz. I was going to say honor the feminine, but what's a more mainstream way to say that? To really acknowledge, that there's another operating system out there, one that, isn't the point A to point B linear model. That's the more feminine, cyclical, chaotic, innovative. I mean, we see it everywhere. Like anyone who does business knows the feminine. They just don't call it that. They call it volatility. They call it something else, but it's the feminine. So back to your question, though, I see it once women get what the new kind of sex is, and once there's actually space for their true desire to come out, the roles completely switch. And I kid you not, like in my practice, like the women end up hunting the men down. Like they are like, give me more sex now. And the guys are like, can we just talk about how this is going? And the women are like, no. It totally changes. And there's some research recently. I'm blanking on the name of the book, but it was about a year ago, and it was about women's libidos. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. And it was talking about just this phenomenon that actually in our apish ancestors, the women initiate sex, the women are voracious, and it's just in our modern humanity that we've put the lid on that and done all this shaming and repressing of women's sex drives. So my take on that is not like couples come into me all the time with the complaint that she doesn't want to have sex. She complains about it because she wishes she wanted to, and he complains about it because, like you said, he's chasing her down for more. And the great news that I tell them and that I'll tell anyone listening who's experiencing this is that there's nothing wrong with your libido. I know it. It is completely intact. It's literally that the kind of sex you're having doesn't leave any space for it to come out. So women's libidos, just like women's genitals and women's orgasms, are different than men's, right? Most men, and I talk about this in the TED Talk, I don't know if I say it this directly because it was on TED, but if you give them repeated stimulation, like repeated pressure, increasing friction, they will experience pleasure, right? Like that's how male genitals tend to work. Not always, but often. And that's just not true with women. And I do talk about this in TED. There's that moment when you're a woman who's receiving sexual stimulation or you're stimulating a woman and you're like, this is not happening. And like the harder you try, the worse it gets. And you're like, babe, just don't even go there. Cause you felt that, right? You're like, this is never going to happen. Like I'm getting further from this goal, the harder you push, right?
It's like, oh, damn, did I leave those dishes in the sink?
Exactly. Yeah. Our minds wander. And that's not because we don't want sex or because it doesn't, well, that type of pressure might not feel good for most women's genitals, but it's not that we don't want sex, that we don't want to feel pleasure. It's that when you apply the rules that work for men to women, it makes us clam up. We flinch, we tighten. It doesn't, that's not how women's bodies work. So what I've found and what I teach is that if you actually leave space, enough space for a woman's desire to come out, then it will. So a woman's libido will not respond to pressure, and it will not be predictable, controllable, or directable. It is a wild, natural force that the best thing you can do is just create the conditions for it to come out, and then just wait,
Mm.
And I was
okay. So you say space.
Yeah, go ahead.
What does space mean? Like to me, it can mean different things. When you say give her space.
Yeah. So space in this sense is a lack of pressure, lack of expectations, lack of assumptions, anything that puts pressure on a woman to perform, to measure up, to do it, to get turned on, And here's an analogy that might have it make sense for you. There's two. Let's see which one I'm going to use. I'll definitely talk about the sleep one. So one way that has it make a lot of sense is that sleep is another natural, normal, involuntary response, human experience that cannot be forced, right? So if you've ever tried to make yourself go to sleep, unless you're 10% of the population that can just conk out, like my son, it's like, it doesn't matter where he is, just fall over, pass out, Unless you're like that, most likely the harder you try to fall asleep, the worse it gets. You're laying up at night 2 hours later being like, fuck, now your brain is reeling and you're trying to calm down and you're closing your eyes and then you're mad at yourself because you can't sleep. And the more pressure you put on your body to fall asleep, the worse it gets.
Makes total sense.
If someone held a gun to your head and said, go to sleep, Monica, unless you're my son, no way, not going to happen. So really, the way that we're trying to have sex right now is similar to that, in that women's bodies and women's arousal is actually involuntary, the way sleep is. It's not, you can't control it. The best thing you can do, just like sleep, is you create the conditions. So for sleep, you get in bed, you turn the lights out, maybe you put some music on depending on who you are, read a book, obsess over Facebook on your phone for 5 hours, whatever your routine is,
That's
for sleeping.
So, and then also too, it starts
in bed.
Yeah, it starts before you're actually in the bedroom. So, when you say space and creating, it's not just, oh, let's go in and get naked and here we go. It's like, no, it takes time. It's like a mental thing as well.
Yeah, and I would say that it's a whole, it's a whole shift of perspective. So the lack of pressure that I'm talking about, yes, isn't just in that moment of, hey, we've decided that we're going to have sex and you're going to go get in bed and he's going to sit on the other side of the bed and wait for her. Now, that would at least be better than what most couples do, because at least that's giving space for the woman's desire to come out, But that's not really what I'm talking about. It's more that the way we've been trying to have sex is similar to, that enforced sleep. And really, it's shifting what we think sex is. So right now we think of sex as a pretty linear point A to point B experience. That's, first you kiss, and then you do some foreplay, and really it's all gearing towards intercourse and climax. Like that is the goal of sex for most people. That's what we're aiming for. That's what has us think sex worked, that we did it right, that we're good people, that we're hot, that he's happy, that she's happy. The problem is for many women, and many of you out there may have had this experience of thinking, well, orgasms are great, but there's got to be something more than that. Or the feeling of laying awake at night and your partner's passed out happily and you're like, that was okay, but that can't be this penultimate experience of, pleasure that I think is possible or that I hear is possible. And why that is because even the expectation of having intercourse, of reaching climax, any expectation will put pressure on a woman's system. It would just be like saying, hey, Monica, so I'm going to create the nice conditions for you to fall asleep, but you have to do it in 5 minutes. So even if the bed is comfy and the nice music is on, if there's a timer on that thing, it's not going to work. It's the same feeling for women in sex because our pleasure, our orgasm, our arousal isn't point A to point B. So what I say now is the way that I have sex now and that I teach people to have sex is really that I'm going to put two people in bed together and God knows what's going to happen. You just don't know. Like if you actually want to open up a woman's sexual experience and really, really have some real connection, there is no way that you could ever predict or assume to know anything that would happen. It might be hot and wild. She might cry. He might cry. They might love each other. They might hate each other. I mean, any human experience that you could picture happening in the course of a normal life will happen in bed with two people who are being honest. Like, that's just how it goes. Yet for some reason, we've been trying to have this, like, slam dunk cookie cutter, it worked every time experience with sex instead of opening to the richness of, well, what's here this time between you and me? Like, what wants to happen in this moment, which is different than what wanted to happen yesterday. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you talk about this new sex, and you have the title of new sex. Since primarily, this is the socialite series direct towards women, what do we do for ourselves, or if we're in a relationship, or, things have gone stale in a marriage? What do we do? What steps do we take for ourselves?
Yeah, well, the first step is to get educated. I know it's not very sexy, but really, women getting educated on how they're built is very sexy in the end. Because we just don't know. That's like, I think I mentioned this at the beginning. That's the great news that I tell women and couples who are experiencing this, is that we just haven't learned another way of doing it. We don't even know the way our own bodies work. And part of that is because of, the culture that we've all been living in the last couple hundred years. And part of it is also that women are inherently mysterious. Like, that is part of the feminine. That is part of the feminine operating system, is that it's not linear. It's not logical. It's not the same twice. And so the first thing I think that I would have women do, if I could just educate you now, so let's do that step together, is to actually embrace how you're designed. So I hear so much, and I've experienced so much myself, embarrassment about how much I changed. That I'm really happy, 5 minutes ago, and now I'm pissed, and I don't know why. And I feel embarrassed. I feel crazy. I feel unjustified that my partner's going to be mad at me. Or I'm really excited to have sex, and then we get in bed, and I just tighten up, and I don't know why, And so the first step would be to stop expecting yourself to act like a guy. Like, you are not a hairless guy. Like, you're just not. Like, you are completely different than a man. And so the expectations that we women have on ourselves to be that smooth, linear, progressive, point A to point B model is just not how we're made. Thank God. It'd be really boring if we were. Like, honestly,
sure
it would be really
would.
boring. It really would. Like, we talked about, like, the volatility, the innovation of women is what makes life interesting. I mean, like, you put one woman in a room and the room changes. Like, it's just never the same. You put 10 women, it totally changes. I mean, it's just like we are the unexpected embodied. And so for women, like, please, like, my prayer is that you embrace that about yourself. That you stop apologizing for it, that you eliminate the word crazy from your vocabulary, because you're not crazy. You're amazing. You're ever-changing. You're exquisite. You're sensitive. You're phenomenal. Like, dig for a different word, because crazy tends to be that cover-up word for, I had rapid change and I'm embarrassed, because I don't think rapid change is a normal part of being a human.
Good. That's good. I love that.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Feels good, right? It feels good. It feels normal, because it is normal. This is how we're built. Yeah, it's nice to just sit with that, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And there's so much information out there now. And with the internet and porn and sex has changed
Mm-hmm.
clearly, and it will continue to change. And I know that it's always seems like, well, to me, I'm going to go off on a little, change this question on you. So it seems
Please.
that women tend to say men don't want a connection, but I feel like what I hear is women are starting to not want connection as much as the
Hmm.
men do. Have you
Hmm.
experienced that at all?
Could you give me an example in your life of what you're talking about?
Well, like say for instance, we're allowed to be, I don't like to use the word crazy and I don't, but we're allowed to be inhibited. We're allowed to talk about sex these days. It's fun, it's
Mm-hmm.
exciting. And men are still left behind where the woman shouldn't be talking about sex or we shouldn't be experiencing pleasure or they don't know how, or maybe it's too hard. Does that make any
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
So I kind of
Well,
like
I
that
think I know what you're talking
movement.
about. Yes. Good. And I'm happy
I'm
to
just
hear
I
that
like
that's
that movement. It's like
your experience.
we're becoming equal, and which there's a lot of responsibility in that, whether it be sex or being president or being drafted to the military. It's if it's
Mm-hmm.
equal, it's equal. That's a whole different subject. But
Yes.
back to sex. Have you
Yes.
found any
Yes.
of
No,
that
I love it.
experience?
Yeah, there's so many things I want to talk about in what you just mentioned. I'm trying to think of the order I want to say them in. So, um, the first thing I would say to that, I'm going to be just controversial here because I am controversial. This is
I
how it
like
goes
that.
with me.
Go for it.
So women are, oh, good, this is great. I can't believe I'm going to say this on the radio, but I believe this. Women are naturally leaders in humanity. That is in no way negating the value of men or saying that men don't have, I mean, men are phenomenal. I adore, worship, and could never live without them. And what's true is that the woman tends to set the tone in the relationship. The woman tends to have more power. So as deep as the woman is willing to go, it sort of determines how well things are going to go. Now, this, like you're saying, this is the opposite of what we traditionally think because of our masculine-dominated culture. Women have often played, the more demure, like princess in distress role, and it's really up to the guy. That's actually, I don't believe, ever been true. If you look at, most families or, any sort of system that's intact like that, like everyone sort of jokingly, but it's true, says, well, the woman is running this roost, That's actually what's going on. And
Right.
so it makes sense to me that, and this is important that we talk about this because as women are gaining leadership, power, both in the corporate world and just in our own sense of self, that it's okay to take up space and it's okay to be leaders. That's actually a good thing because women are going to pave the way for humanity to get ushered into this next phase. Because what we're doing right now really isn't working. So we're not talking about sex anymore. We're talking about life, but we know that. Like our planet, our culture, our environment, violence, like there's a lot that wants to be remedied and that is being remedied. And I really think that women taking leadership is what's going to do it. Now, in my own personal experience, there's a bit of sometimes discomfort that comes, like you said, because men feel, left behind or that they aren't in the know anymore. And the most important thing for me, for us as women to do in that situation is to employ our feminine and to employ our feminine operating system rather than behaving like men, right? So that was kind of something that was up a lot in the 80s and 90s where women were gaining power, but they were kind of like men in suits. And I think we're coming in, do you know what I'm saying? And
Oh
I think
yeah.
there was like, or women in suits, I mean, like, just behaving like how men
Mm-hmm.
do to get power, to have status, to be authorities. And I think what you're speaking to is this new era is getting ushered in where women can actually, we can be women and actually need to be women in order to have the
Yes.
authority that we naturally have. There's been tons of studies that, I don't want to get too much into, but about, if you studies that they've done in, I think it was somewhere in African cultures, where if they gave women if they invested in women and invested in men, the women always reinvested in the culture, and the men didn't always do that. So women, because of our, childbearing and just the way our operating system is designed, which is for connection, then we'll tend to make different, more altruistic decisions, different decisions. So it's actually my firm belief that when women get turned on, have power, when we have this kind of sex, to bring it back to sex that does work for women, everybody actually gets what they want. It's not, I'm in no way ushering in a time where like women reign. Like that is not what I'm going for. I'm actually going for the union between the two, where we can each say, I need you and what you bring, and I need you and what you bring. The thing that I want to remedy is that we've really been heavily relying on the masculine operating system and really ignoring the gifts that the feminine brings, the necessary gifts that it brings. So my quest is really ultimate union, where we can both say, because here's a great example that I use all the time with clients. Masculine operating system is really point A to point B, goal-driven, achievement-oriented. It's linear, it's progressive, it heads towards a goal, it achieves the goal, and then, woo, you did it. Like, it's amazing for that. I would never suggest anyone ever give that up. Like, I tell my female clients all the time, like, if we want to go get ice cream after this session, we need to turn on our masculine. Otherwise, we'll never make it. You'd never make it. Because the feminine is this, it's this meandering, wandering, volatile, ever-changing, just totally fluid, unexpected experience of what's here now. So we might want ice cream, but we might not make it to the ice cream shop if we were only in our feminine. So you can see, like, it's really about using both.
Absolutely. And you did a good job on working around that because it was confusing, but it's giving us permission to be a woman. It's okay to want success and to be powerful and A-type, but we're still a feminine woman. So embrace that. We don't need to get rid of that. We need to embrace it, and we need to cherish and really bring that back without feeling like we're the old housewife type thing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Totally.
So this has been so much fun, and I could talk about sex with you all day, but unfortunately we can't do that. So tell us something juicy. Give us one juicy tip, and then also tell us how we can support you and what you have going on.
Awesome. Well, let's see. The one juicy tip that I want to give you right now, which actually relates to something that I have going on. So for those of you who live in Santa Cruz, that's where I live, I'm putting on an event tomorrow night, an intro event about desire. And desire becomes really important when you decide to have this new kind of sex. Because like we mentioned earlier, there's no point A to point B roadmap. The traditional order of sex, the way it's supposed to go, is just completely thrown out the window. And really, the new kind of sex, and there's more container to it. So there's some more steps I can give you. There's a bit more structure, but the essence of it is, we're going to get into bed together and have an experience, and neither of us know, what's going to arise. So when you enter that kind of territory, just like Monica and I were before this show went on air, we're talking about stepping out of your comfort zone. When you step out of your comfort zone and enter this unknown territory, either in sex or anywhere in your life, you're using your feminine operating system, and the only guidepost that you have is what you want, because there's no rules. What you did yesterday is irrelevant. How Monica does it is irrelevant. How I do it is irrelevant. It's really about you, this body, this lifetime, this set of cells, this personality. What does this thing want? What does it want right now? What does it want tomorrow? What did it want 2 minutes ago? And how is that changing? So actually tracking and becoming exquisitely aware of your own desire is essential for knowing how to navigate this new type of sex. Because like I said, the old guideposts are no longer there. So getting in touch with what you want as a woman is crucial. And that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow night, 7 to 9 p.m. at 215 River Street. Please come join us if you're local. If not, go ahead over to my website. You can check out my blog. I have several articles in there on desire so that you can start exploring this for yourself more, getting it more in touch with what you want, because that's really one of the first steps towards having this new kind of sex, which brings you more fulfillment, and feels like a vacation instead of feeling, like a chore that you're happy with when it's over.
Sounds fabulous to me. Well, thank you so much. And we'll put all of your information, your contact information, all your websites, and the link to your event for tomorrow. I want to thank you so much for blessing us with the conversation of sex and making it easy. And yes, thank you all for listening. Bez, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to say to all of you, have a sexy day. This show is officially over. Until next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Socialite series. To find out more, visit us at santacruzsocialites.com and monicakarst.com. Until next week, be seen and be heard, and get out and shine your social light on your community.